Me, but also you. The Pharaoh fast forwards his favorite foreign film, Powder Donut. Okay, what's my line?
The only line I see here on the script is get options based on your budget with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive.
Oh man, that's a tongue twister, huh? I'm sorry, I'm gonna need a few more minutes. Bulbous Walrus, the Bulbous Walrus.
The Name Your Price tool, only from Progressive.
The owl ran afoul of the comatose coxswain.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Welcome, readers. Today on Book Chat, we are talking about young adult fiction. We are diving into why we like it, what we don't like about it. We have some book recommendations and more. Get excited. The conversation starts now. Today's episode is sponsored in part by Audiobooks.com. Audiobooks.com now has 175,000 titles and 1.2 million podcasts. New customers get 3 free audiobooks comprised of 1 premium credit and 2 VIP titles. Use our promo code SHELFADDICTION, spelled as one word, when you sign up at Audiobooks.com. Again, our promo code is SHELFADDICTION. Hey everyone, I'm your host, Tamara Ford, and welcome to Book Chat here on the Shelf Addiction Podcast. Participate in this discussion by joining the Facebook group Shelf Addiction Official. I hope to hear your thoughts on today's topic. You can always find me and Casey on Twitter and Instagram. The links for everything I've mentioned are below in the show notes. If you enjoyed today's episode, please support this podcast by sharing it with some book nerd friends or on your favorite social media space. That would really help me out, and I appreciate you for doing so. The uncut video version of this podcast is available now on Patreon. Join us there for exclusive videos, including after shows and more. So if you're interested in that at all, you'll need to come on over to Patreon and sign up. Without further ado, let's get started. Welcome back. Joining me is feature co-host Casey from Hearts Full of Ink. Welcome back, Casey.
Hello. I'm so happy to be here again, as always.
Yeah. So today we are going to talk about all things YA. YA books. We'll be touching on a bunch of different aspects related to YA books. A few recommendations, talking about reading YA from the adult's point of view. And of course, thankfully, we have a few readers react at the end. So stay until the end to hear those. So yeah, let's just jump right on in. So I feel like YA has been such a prevalent, notable, reading level, almost where people consider it a genre.
Oh, it's absolutely a genre.
Yeah, I guess it is a genre. It is a genre and a reading level. It's 2 for 1.
Yeah.
With the so many adaptations coming out and, the hardcore fans of these series and books and stuff. It's just like been a huge thing for the last decade, and it seems to not be going away anytime soon.
I will say that there were YA books back in the 90s that weren't as popular, and I hate to credit it, but Twilight is what made YA popular right now. Like, Twilight was what sparked this YA phenomenon.
Yes.
Not to get into recommendations yet, and this isn't on my official recommendation list, but there was the book Blood and Chocolate, which is about a teenage girl who's a werewolf, and she's falling in love with a human boy. And I cannot remember the author right now. It was a fantastic book, very YA, very tropey, very standard YA, but nobody really talks about it because it came out in the late 90s before Twilight. And so nobody was really reading werewolves before Twilight came out. Mm-hmm. So it's been around for a while. And if I can think of that author's name, I'll tell you. But the book was Blood and Chocolate, and she had another book about a vampire. They do not have happy endings, which is really sad, but
I'm okay with that. You know me, I like a realistic ending.
Yeah.
But YA has been around for a long time. Technically, I was reading YA as a young adult. You know what I mean? And that was a long time ago. I'm not going to say how long, but it was a long time ago. But only has it become more mainstream, like in the last decade or so.
Yeah.
Maybe 15 years.
Again, Twilight.
Yeah. And I did like Twilight. And when I read Twilight, guess what? I was an adult. I was not young adult. I wasn't young adult. Young adult, we'll go into that in a minute. I will read the description of young adult. I was a 20-something, I think, late 20s, I think, when I finally read Twilight. It was before the movies came out, but after the teens have blown through it. So maybe early, I don't know now. I just know I was grown and I'm like, oh, it's kind of good. I like it. And I feel like that did kind of crack the door a little bit for me because, you know, I always tell this story, so I'm not going to retell it now, but I really dived into urban fantasy and stuff in like my mid-20s kind of by accident. And then I just started consuming more and more and more. But I hadn't really read any young adult fantasy. I think Twilight was about the beginning of it. And of course, young adult, they follow those trends like everyone else. So you have YA mysteries that were hot for a minute, YA dystopia that's hot for a minute. So it follows the cycles with all other fiction, but it's just intended for young adults. Well, quote unquote. So I'll just tell you what Wikipedia says about young adult, and then I'll share what Writer's Edit feels about young adult, because there's a slight difference. So Wikipedia says young adult fiction is a category of fiction written for readers 12 to 18. While the genre is targeted to adolescents, approximately half of YA readers are adults. The subject matters and genres of YA correlate with the age and experience of the protagonist. The genres available in YA are expansive and include most of those found in adult fiction. Common themes related to YA include friendship, first love, relationships, and identity. All right. So the first thing I noticed when I flipped over to Writer's Edit is the years are off just a little. So they say the first key difference between YA fiction and adult fiction is that the age category of the protagonist, okay? It must have at least one teenage protagonist, usually in the upper teens between 15 and 19. Protagonists that fall in the lower end of teens tend to be more common in middle grade. But Wikipedia said 12 to 18. Now, I would tend to agree more with Writer's Edit in this case, because I do think 12-year-olds fall in middle grade.
Yeah. They're right on that cusp, in that gray area where they feel like they're older and they want to be more adulty, but they're not quite there yet.
I mean, you haven't hit puberty yet. I mean, how can you be young adult? Yeah. Okay. So, and I guess the difference for them is that adult fiction have main characters any age, but generally tends to favor protagonists 20 and above. And of course, another key distinction is that the young adult's voice is the predominant voice in the book, which is obviously important. And they have a couple of other things about themes and stuff like that. And of course, they make note to the category that I like to question its validity, and that is the new adult category. So just to make this even more murky, so new adult is very new as well. Do you think it's 10 years old now?
Yeah, it's probably about 10 years old.
So this category kind of it's supposed to lie in between YA and adult. So something of a crossover or midpoint. So I guess they could be 19 to 25?
To 22, maybe 25. I know a lot of adult contemporaries, the heroines are usually like 22, 23, 24, 25.
College age usually?
Yeah, for like the adult contemporaries. New adult is very specifically college. So, you know, you're a freshman, you're a senior. They're usually not going into their master's programs yet. It's like the first 4 years of college, what you're doing, living on your own, going to parties, getting drunk, you know, losing your virginity if you didn't in high school.
Oh, God.
It's supposed to be another sort of coming of age if you didn't have your coming of age in high school.
I kind of not really a fan of the new adult category. I see what they're trying to do, but the reason why I'm not a fan is because young adult books have anything in it any fucking way. So what is the point of categorizing that? Because teens, whatever, they're going to read what they're going to read, right? Unless you have some strict parent monitoring what you're reading, which most don't, let's keep it real. They're not going to know the difference between YA that has sex and YA that doesn't. They don't know. So what the heck? I mean, what is the point of making this category? Like,
I think help classify it, not necessarily like for a marketing standpoint, because you can say, hey, these books are about kids in high school, but these books are about kids in college. And so if you want to read college age stuff,
but does it even, okay, let's think about, does it really matter though? Because the reason why I say that is because most of these stories, I know there are exceptions, but a lot of stories, especially in fantasy and thriller / mystery, these kids aren't in damn school anyway. They off acting like adults, doing adulty things in other places other than school. Sometimes they go to school, but rarely are they in school.
But rarely, yeah. I don't know. It's categories, genre, marketing stuff, I guess. I don't know. It's so if you like very specifically want somebody who's college age, so you can still feel that young angst, but not be like, oh my God, high school is crap. Let's look at college angst. I guess.
College angst is so similar to high school angst.
I typically avoid new adult unless I get specific recommendations from people, because most of it is so repetitive. Like they've taken the tropes and then every book is the same trope over and over and over again, and not in a good tropey way. Like, no, I just
So since we're on the topic of like tropes and stuff for you know pertaining to young adult, they talked about first love, kind of finding yourself, all of that stuff. A lot of young adult books can be too graphic, too sexy, quote unquote, to be properly identified, especially if you're going with Wikipedia and you're saying the protagonist is 12. I don't know. And that's like another tricky thing, because I remember clearly reading B.C. Andrews books when I was in middle school. Those books had incest, sex, right? And I wasn't saying, oh no, I shouldn't be reading this. And my parents were happy I had a damn book in my hand. They weren't like, let me read the half of this book to see what's in here. So that leaves us, I mean, can YA books be too sexy, too graphic? Does it matter?
I don't think it really matters. Like, unless it's targeted at a 12-year-old, then I'm like, why is it this sexy? But if it's, 16, 17, 18, yeah, those kids are having sex. Yeah. I know girls who lost their virginity happily at 14. Like, they wanted to do it that early and they don't regret it. I know girls who didn't lose their virginity until they were 25. So it really depends on
the person.
Yeah. So, no, I don't think it's too early, because again, kids are going to have sex. And especially especially today with the internet and porn fucking everywhere. I think I'd rather learn about sex in a book than by watching porn. Or
Lord. Well, maybe we all don't know, but porn is not a good representation of real life sex. These people are paid to do outrageous things and do things that most people don't do to a certain extent. So setting the bar for what sex should be like using pornography is probably not the best route to go.
No. Read a book. Figure out how sex works from a book.
Read a book, because, I mean, honestly, a lot of this stuff is open door anyway, so you can get all the details.
Unless you're reading historical romance where it's too flowery and you're like, what is happening with her petals and a sheath and what?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Skip that. Skip historical. If you're trying to learn about sex, pull out some good old contemporary romance with some open door sex, or fantasy with open door sex.
Fantasy.
And you're good to go. You got education right there.
Yes.
But what about violence, though? Because I know, again, like, I don't mind the violence. I mean, we talked about in other shows, on the fantasy series we're doing, I don't mind we're doing an Emperor in the Ashes. Bring on the violence. It doesn't bother me as an adult reading YA. And I'm sure 99.99% sure it did not bother me as a teen reading YA. Is that another like non-starter? Like, who cares?
It doesn't matter to me. And again, I think it really depends on the person. Obviously, for the last 10 plus years, kids have been having to do active shooter drills every day in school. They have to, hide from a shooter, or they have to deal with it in real life. So they're seeing all kinds of violence. They're going to have all kinds of trauma from this shit. I don't think that having it in a book would make it any worse than what they're dealing with in real life. But again, if a kid is like super traumatized from real life, they won't want to read about it in a book. So they can make that conscious choice to say, nope, it's too violent. I don't want to read this. I just want happy, fluffy stuff. Yeah. And the kid can make their choice that way. Yeah. But I don't think parents or adults should be dictating what's too violent or not violent enough, or
I mean, because honestly, if you want to get like into the real nuts and bolts of it, you're not monitoring video games, right? And I've seen articles that say kids playing video games, violent video games, does not make them more violent, right? So I think the same applies with books. Just because you're reading about it doesn't mean it's going to make you more violent. So that's kind of a moot point as far as, oh, your precious mind, we must protect. That's kind of like, no, that doesn't hold water.
Usually there's more emotional depth to the violence in the book as opposed to a video game. Again, I don't usually play video games, so I'm speaking out of my ass here, but I feel like in most video games, if you're running around as a first-person shooter, you just see people and you shoot them, right? Like, that's kind of the main gist of video games. But in books, going back to An Ember in Ashes, which we discussed last month, in that scene where Elias had to kill all his friends because they were dying and everything was, magic and amplified, he was really struggling with that. It was awful for him. He felt guilty. He felt terrible. He was basically crying. He didn't want to kill anybody, but he had to do it to save other people. And it was this huge moral dilemma for him. And as a reader, we were feeling all those things with him. We were on that journey with him. And it felt more of a struggle. It's not just, oh, bad guy, kill bad guy. It's, oh, fuck, I have to kill people. I don't want to kill people. What's going on? Why do I have to kill people? Is there a way out of this? No, there's no way out of this. What do I do? It's more emotional and nuanced. And it's, what do you do in that situation? Do you kill people? Do you get out of it? How do you survive? And then he feels guilty about it forever afterwards. Like, it's not one and done and he's off. He's feeling guilty. He emotes.
And I do think that is attributed more to the author than the genre per se, because I can think about one series that I enjoyed early on, but it kind of morphed for me. And that was the Red Rising series by Pierce Brown. I mentioned it before to you in another situation. I can't remember. But this series is kind of the opposite of that. Like, yes, the children, the teens, they feel a little guilty about killing people, but they know that's what they have to do. And they're more about, let's be strategic in the art of war type stuff. They're like, yeah, that sucks. I knew him once, but if it's me or you, it's you, dude. And there's no like tug of war of, I don't want to do it. They're like, fucking stab his face in and then worry about it later. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like, in that, you know, that's a different writing style, but it's, even though it's not as emotional, I think it's still nuanced in a way, because they're not, I guess, not necessarily like serial killer kills, just killing, but you know,
kill.
Right. But they are killing, and they are okay with it because that's what their world is. And that's what needs to be done. So it's not this huge struggle of, I don't want to kill. It's like, okay, I have to kill, and I'm going to, because I want to win. But I also want my friends to be on my side, and I don't want to kill my friends, but I'll fucking do it if I have to. I mean, so that's like another aspect of it, you know, so it's still equally as violent, maybe a little more, because there's a lot of backstabbing and stuff going on in that book. But you know, I don't know. I have no problem handing that over to, like, when my niece is 13 or 14 and she wants to say, TC, what's a good book? I'm feeling a little bit like I want some action and something traumatizing and dramatic. I'm like, here, read this.
Traumatizing and dramatic. Yes.
I mean, bring the drama. I want the drama. Here you go. This is full of drama. You go ahead. And it has some sweet moments as well. But, you know, I wouldn't recommend that for someone who loves romances, obviously. But just like an adult, right?
Oh, yeah.
So with all that said, we know we like to read YA. Why do you like to read YA?
I love it because it's so nuanced and it's emotional and it's so raw. You know, it's these kids who are like, they feel like they're the only person who can save the world. They feel like they're the only ones who can accomplish this. They don't trust the adults. They don't feel like they have any other resource, you know, usually because they have to go save the world. They have to do whatever. And it's so hero inspiring almost. Like, I feel like this is more of a hero's journey, to get more literary, than most adult stories, because, you know, the adults are like, hey, you know, I'm just part of the team. Let's all save the world together. Yeah, sometimes it's one person doing the saving, but with a teenager, they're more like, no, I'm 16 and I have to save the world right now. And that's, you know, for the more fantasy thriller type stuff. With the contemporaries, it's just cute and it's fun and it's angsty and it's, you know, I don't know, sometimes it's like getting wrapped in a blanket because you're like, oh yes, the angst blanket. Let's
the angst blanket.
Be angsty.
Oh my gosh. Well, sometimes I can do without the angst, but it doesn't bother me when the story is so good, the character development is so good, that it almost takes a backseat. It's not like the primary thing. The whining isn't primary, it's secondary.
Oh yeah.
So there's that. But I like reading YA just because, I mean, not trying to be funny, but like sometimes it is nuanced, but sometimes it's just simple and it's enjoyable because it's easy. Like I don't have to, like, not every story has to be this, I don't know, Pulitzer Prize winning, let me think about this from 20 ways till Sunday kind of story. Sometimes it's just fun. Sometimes it's just entertaining. And it's easy read, fast read, like kind of like an indulgence. You can just dive in, have a good time, and put it down. You don't have to be like, oh my gosh, the world is crumbling at our feet. Let's talk about how we can save the world based on, you know, what we've, not every book. I don't like that kind of reading sometimes. And this breaks up the monotony of adult fiction because sometimes general adult fiction is just that. It's like, oh my fucking God. Like, give me something more simple and fun. And if you surprise me with the plot twist, yay, you did it. But, you know, I don't know. I just like it. And I go in phases with it.
It's easy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's so many different subgenres within YA, like the contemporaries versus the fantasies versus all of the fairy tale retellings. Like that's a whole ass genre right there in itself. And YA is so much more diverse than any other genre out there right now. 100%. And it's beautiful. Like, it's beautifully diverse with disabled characters, with characters of color, with characters of different religions, with gay characters, with straight characters, with trans characters. Like, it's so, you can find just about anything that you want in YA. Whereas in an adult, it's so difficult to find that stuff because the publishing, they don't feel like they can sell it to adults, but they're like, oh yeah, you know, Gen Z, they're more open to this. Let's let these kids have what they want.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, especially like the diversity has been much improved in the last 15 years or so. Going back to 1990s, not so diverse, but today, just Google and you can find so many different things. I mean, you could probably get very specific about something you're looking for, and you could probably find it.
Oh, yeah.
So
absolutely.
Yeah. I think it's great for kids to read, teens to read different stories told by own voices authors. I like that the most.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you live in a small town in the middle of BFE and you don't know a lot of different kinds of people or a lot of different kinds of cultures, go there in a book, learn something in a book.
Exactly.
So why not? Absolutely. I love it. And I think adult fiction has gotten a little bit better.
It's slowly getting better, but it's at a snail's pace while YA is moving a little bit faster.
And plus, again, like, not being funny, these these adult books, are so serious. They're so serious. And it's like, do we have to read about everyone's hardship? And it's like, yes, those stories are important, but sometimes I don't want that. Sometimes I just want to have a good time. Yeah. And I want it with a character that looks like me. And I want it in a country I've never been to before or whatever. It doesn't always have to be this heavy piece of literature. You know what I'm saying? So that's like the bonus of YA.
Oh, yeah.
You get the diversity without necessarily all of the weight that comes sometimes in those type of books. But there are some YA books that do have a heavier plot. And I still think those are well told too, because it's from from a child's point of view or a teen's point of view. So it's different from the adult's, vibe. So yeah, I love it all. I love it all.
The Bells by Danielle Clayton. It's a very pretty YA fantasy with girls who can alter the royals' features. But she wrote that with undertones of slavery. And so if you're looking for the nuances, you're seeing how these girls are treated like slaves. But that's not the main point of the story. That's not at the forefront. That's not the tragedy porn. That's just the nuance that if you read between the lines,
you can catch
you understand that.
Yeah.
But on the surface, it's a YA fantasy story of how girls trapped in this castle and doing shitty work and they're trying to escape. And it doesn't have to be tragedy porn set in Florida in the 1800s to be about slavery. It can be in this fantasy world. It can be with all these pretty dresses and all this other beautiful stuff going on.
Yeah. And that's also why I appreciate YA authors for adding those undertones and nuances that actually reading as an adult, you're more aware of versus like, okay, so let's say me and a 14-year-old read that same book. We may get two different things from it because I'm reading the undertones. I see what's being said underneath, and maybe a 14-year-old wouldn't. So a 14-year-old might get what they need from it at that time. An adult will get layers because we know more.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's, again, the beauty of YA is it can be for anybody. There can be so many different layers. You can find what you need. You can find happiness. You can be like, oh my God, she's teaching us that slavery is fucked up, and but without writing a tragic story about slavery in the US, because we have 18 million of those stories and we don't need another one.
But that's like that with a whole lot of different, stories, of immigration and other things. They are in these YA books, but maybe not in such an in-your-face kind of way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's so many. And you guys, as we're talking about like these different genres and subgenres, if you have like YA books that you think have been phenomenal and thereby diverse authors, women of color, let us know. Like if you recommend something.
Yes.
Please recommend books to me.
Please. I want all the recommendations. Yes, always.
Especially for me, if you could throw something that's like dystopian in there, or if it's fantasy in some kind of way, and it tells a fabulous story in a unique setting with a unique voice, recommend it to me.
Yes.
All right. I think now's a good time to take a quick break. When we return, we are going to finish up our convo with some recommendations. And of course, we will have a couple of readers react comments. And yes, stay with us. And until then, check out the sponsors, click around, show some support. By supporting them, you support us. And we'll be right back. Today's episode is brought to you by the Shelf Addiction merch store. Check out all the bookish t-shirts, notebooks, mugs, and more. Don't miss out on these original designs, perfect for any book nerd. Support the podcast and visit shelfaddiction.com/merch and pick up your next favorite bookish item.
Introducing touch-free payments from PayPal, a safe way for your customers to pay. Simply download the PayPal app and display your own unique QR code for your customers to scan. Whether you're a market seller,
I'll take 2 tomatoes and a cucumber,
poodle pamperer, piano tuner, or plumber, signing up to accept touch-free payments for your business is easy. Touch-free QR code payments. Shop safe with PayPal. Introducing touch-free payments from PayPal, a safe way for your customers to pay. Simply download the PayPal app and display your own unique QR code for your customers to scan. Whether you're a market seller,
I'll take 2 tomatoes and a cucumber,
poodle pamperer, piano tuner, or plumber, signing up to accept touch-free payments for your business is easy. Touch-free QR code payments. Shop safe with PayPal.
Me, but also you. The Pharaoh fast forwards his favorite foreign film, Powder Donut. Okay, what's my line?
The only line I see here on the script is get options based on your budget with the name your price tool from Progressive.
Oh man, that's a tongue twister, huh? I'm sorry, I'm gonna need a few more minutes. Bulbous Walrus, the Bulbous Walrus.
The Name Your Price tool, only from Progressive.
The owl ran afoul of the comatose coxswain.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
All right, welcome back, guys. Let's continue on, and we're going to give some recommendations of our own. And to be quite fair, like for myself, all of these recommendations, well, except for, one, no, that's a lie. 2 of them are still going on, but they're not new series, right? They've been out for 4 or 5 years. And 2 of them are very old, not very, very old, but I don't know, a decade old. Because just for me, I don't read as much YA as I used to. I feel like now I read it here and there, but not as consistently as I used to. So the ones that I feel the most close with, the ones that I just remember with such, awe, are a little bit older. So just know that. And if you haven't read them, you'll love them. So Casey, how are you with your recommendations? What kinds do you have?
They're kind of all over the place. Most of them are kind of newer. And then one series kind of old, but it's coming into a TV show in the next couple of years. So people are going to be talking about it again.
Okay. Well, why don't you kick it off with your first one?
All right. I'll start with that one. It's the Mediator Series by Meg Cabot, which came out in like the early 2000s, maybe late 1990s, possibly. It's about this girl, Suze, who can see ghosts. And so she and her mother move into this house in California after her mom gets remarried. And there's a ghost living in her bedroom. But it's 5 or 6 books long. And it's just really cute. It's so sweetly angsty. Like there's some drama. There's some, a little bit of paranormal fighting with things, because again, she can see ghosts, so there's paranormal elements, but it's Meg Cabot. Like it's sweet. It's not very sexy. Like they only kiss, and she later wrote an adult book for them after they're they've grown up and then they finally have sex. But no, it's one of those series that I read when I want to feel happy.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, well, I have to keep note of that one.
Show. Yes.
Who's making the show?
Oh my God. She said the announcement came out last year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember. Let me Google that really fast while you can go ahead.
Okay, so my first one is, I don't know, I guess it's kind of popular, but not as popular as some of the other ones, but the Lux series by Jennifer L. Armentrout.
Mm-hmm.
I love this series. The first book came out like the end of 2011. So it's like 10 years old, almost 10 years old. And it's aliens, you guys. Aliens. Sexy aliens. Do you remember Roswell? Like, you know how those aliens look? Like, some of them were sexy. These are like hot guy aliens. Mm-hmm. Who are like living on Earth, and they're arrogant, and you know how guys are. Mm-hmm. And of course they fall hard for humans, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're going against the government, running for their lives, teaming up, all the fun alien stuff that you would expect. But I just thought this series was so cute. It was such an easy read. And what's not to love about hot alien boys? I mean, come on. That's the best. That's the best thing about some of the YA stuff. Mm-hmm. I love it. So definitely, if you like aliens and paranormal and fantasy, definitely give that one a try, I think.
Oh, yeah. No, I've heard that recommended so many times, but it's on my list of things to read eventually. But that list is like way too damn long.
You'll like
so really quickly, the Mediator series is going to be a bunch of different movies made for Netflix, and the director, her name is Sarah Spillane.
Mm-hmm.
She's known for directing Around the Block, This Life, and The Manual. And she grew up in Sydney, Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And so Meg Cabot is very excited, and I'm excited, and yes, I think it'll be good.
Okay, bet. Check that out.
Yeah.
What's your next one?
So my next one is Of Curses and Kisses by Sandhya Menon. And it is a modern day retelling of Beauty and the Beast with Indian main character. And it just, my heart. Beauty and the Beast is my favorite fairy tale. And the fact that she's an Indian princess just makes me so happy because, yeah, India. And it's just, it's really cute. Again, this one is more of like the angst blanket because it's very simple plot line. If you know the Beauty and the Beast plot line, you know this plot line. Like it's just, and it's not too sexy either. I don't think any of my recs are very sexy, even though I'm totally pro sex in YA books. This is just one of those sweet ones that I think about and I'm like, yes. Let me go reread this when I want to feel happy. Okay.
All right, cool. Since you mentioned the Beauty and the Beast, retelling, one of mine is that exactly at first. And I mentioned this author tons of times. So if you guys listen to the show, you're probably rolling your eyes. Tamara, not a fucking again. Really? Again? But I cannot resist because I really love this series so much. And it's A Court of Thorns and Roses. The very first book is like a Beauty and the Beast retelling.
Okay.
But after that, it diverges into its own unique story. That theme stops with book 1. But this is also one of those books that I consider a hybrid. This series is a hybrid. It starts out feeling a little YA, but it quickly transforms in book 2 and beyond, especially the latest release that just came out earlier this year. It's full on adults. I feel like there's no YA left. There's no scraps of YA in the latest book. And hopefully it's just labeled adult, because it should be. So this book definitely took a turn. The main characters are doing adult stuff all over town. But it started as YA. So the first 3 books I feel like are classified YA, and it's fun. It's exciting. It's like sexy. It's, I don't know. It's just really good. And I care about these characters, clearly. I'm a fan. Team Night Court. Anywho, do you have another one?
I do. So this one, again, is just super angsty. It's called These Witches Don't Burn by Isabel Sterling. And what I love most about this book is that the main character is a lesbian, but the only issue that she's a lesbian is that she hates her ex-girlfriend, and they're feuding the whole time. Like, it's just pure angst. Her parents know, they don't care. Her other friends know, they don't care. She's out at school. Nobody gives a shit that she's a lesbian. Like, do you understand how rare that is for any, you know, adult gay story in mainstream media? They're like, oh, you're a lesbian. Let's make this whole story about pain and coming out and all this drama bullshit. And it's like, no, this is about her being a witch, and she has to deal with witchy stuff, but also she's fighting with her ex-girlfriend. And it's so, this plot line could work in any other YA book if she was straight, except she's a lesbian. And that's what makes me happy about this, is that nobody gives a shit she's a lesbian. Nobody.
That's the best. Like, it's fine.
It's the best. Like, yeah, no, you're a lesbian? Whatever. Let's deal with your witchy powers. Let's deal with your magic. Let's deal with all this other stuff. There's this little mystery. Let's yell at your ex-girlfriend because she's a bitch. Like, yes, it's perfect.
Like, her being a lesbian isn't like a point of contention that she has to overcome or anything.
No, it's just a statement of fact in this book. And that's what I love most about it. There's a sequel that I haven't read yet, but I want to read it soon.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Awesome. So my next one, this is one that I think people really liked back in the day, and I'm trying to see when the first book came out. I feel like the first book came out like in 2009-ish or something like that. Yeah, 2007. So it's pretty old. And I feel like this book got a raw deal because they made a movie out of the first book, and the movie was awful. It was fucking awful. But the books, the Vampire Academy books by Rochelle Mead, I love them. I love them so hard because the main protagonist, Rose, she's such a kick-ass character. She is strong in so many ways. She has a lot of growth. But there are some questionable things. Like, I feel like the guy she gets with may be a little too old for her. You know, if you want to get technical, he may be a little too old. So there may be a little, but who cares, right? People. So it's vampires and, you know, people who protect the vampires. And don't sleep on this series because, yes, that movie was god awful. And the adaptation didn't make any fucking sense. I don't know what they were thinking. But the books themselves, you root for Rose and her friends. You want them to win. You want them to be successful. You want Rose and Dimitri to be together. Well, I don't know. I'm not going to tell you. But I definitely recommend that one.
Oh, man. Speaking of bad movies. So the book I recommended earlier, Blood and Chocolate, it got a movie, I think early 2000s. That movie's fucking terrible. That movie has no correlation to the book at all other than the title and the character names. Like, that's it. They're not even on the same continent. The plot line is completely different. Everything about the movie is fucked up. I watched it and I yelled at my TV, and my parents got mad at me for yelling at the TV. They're like, Casey, chill out. And I'm like, no, you don't understand.
Oh my gosh.
So don't ever watch the movie Blood and Chocolate. And if you have, know that it is pure trash. Go read the book instead. The book is
okay, noted. And I feel like I recognize that title as a movie, and I was gonna ask you if it was the same thing, but I never saw that movie.
Don't watch the movie. Do not watch that movie. Throw it in the trash can. Read the book instead.
Okay.
Read the book. Don't watch the movie.
Okay, cool. Do you have another?
I have a kind of anti-rec next.
Okay, well, let me give my one before we do your anti-rec.
Yeah.
So I have one more, and I did mention it earlier, but I'm going to reinforce that I think it's a really good series, Red Rising Saga by Pierce Brown. He is the only guy that made the list. I don't read a whole bunch of male authors, but this one he gets props on, especially the first 3 books. The first 3 books, that arc, it ends, it was called the Red Rising trilogy, and then he decided to write more books, and they changed it into the saga. So I'm recommending the first 3. After that, it changes dramatically, and it almost doesn't seem like the same writer or the same world. It's very different. But the first 3 books, you'll feel some themes, very familiar YA themes in dystopia. You'll definitely recognize them in book 1, but it quickly becomes its own. And it's about this is another kind of thing that kind of touches around some slavery aspects, people who are high up living on the hog, and people that are, I don't know, digging out dirt underneath the Mars red moon. You know what I mean? So it's very dramatic. And it's like the story of Arrow who goes through, and it's very science fiction and dystopia. So he wants to infiltrate what they call the golds, like the top of the society. So he goes through this whole transformation, very sci-fi, let me break some bones and grow myself and build some muscle. And he changes his physical appearance so he can go to this school and embed himself into this world. Oh, wow. Yeah, he's like a sleeper cell in there. No one knows he's a red. Oh, wow. It's very interesting. It's very, there's love, there's loss, there's friendship and backstabbing. I mean, the first 3 books are amazing. And it ends in such a way where you're feeling, okay, nice. You don't have to read anymore. So that's where I recommend stopping.
All right.
Yeah. So now let's hear about your anti-rec.
Okay. So this is called A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kemmer. And I have to start off by saying it is very well written. I've read the first 2 books in this trilogy. I have not read the 3rd one yet. It is another Beauty and the Beast retelling, except she is the quote unquote beast because I'm pretty sure she has MS. She has some kind of disease. And I want to say it's MS. It's been a while since I've read it. So it's well written and I loved it while I was reading it, but the author was very much setting up for a different kind of pairing and then changed it in the book 2. So our heroine is in Earth and she gets magically sucked into this other world where there is a prince who's beautiful, except once a month he turns into a beast and kills everybody in sight unless he falls in love because it's Beauty and the Beast. Well, our heroine and our prince are kind of friendly. They're sort of falling in love, but she is absolutely 100% in love with his right-hand man, his knight. It is absolutely clear throughout the entire book that she and the knight are falling in love and they're going to be the couple. Except book 1 ends with her saying, I love you to the prince, and the knight has to leave the castle now. And I'm like, what the fuck is happening? And then book 2, he goes off on his own journey and falls in love with some other girl. And I'm like, no.
Oh.
None of this makes sense.
Ouch.
And I hate it so much. So this is my anti-rec of it's well written, but I hate everything that the characters are doing. And I feel like the author is trying to force the characters to do something, even though they don't want to necessarily be doing this. And then book 2 ends with a weird plot twist. And I'm like, I really don't want to read book 3 because I don't want to know what you're doing with everybody. I've tried erasing this from my mind, and it's been maybe 2 years since I've read it. Maybe a year. I don't know. It's been a while. But I'm so mad at this series. So if anybody has read this and wants to bitch with me, please come bitch with me, because I do not like the way this is going.
But I don't.
It's well written. Like I gave it 4 stars, but I'm so mad at it now.
Yeah, I don't like when there's a clear path, right? A clear path. It's on the wall. Everyone knows it. And then they take a sharp left, like, psych, we're not giving you that.
And everybody mentions it in the beginning of book 2. They're like, oh, you guys are in love, aren't you? And the character's like, no, the heroine in the night. They're like, no, we don't love each other. But everyone's like, we're watching you.
Oh
we
my
see
gosh.
you. You're in love with each other. And they're like, no, we love our other people. So we're just going to like diverge and go off with our other people that we love. And I'm like, this
Maybe
is not...
they come back together in book 3.
I doubt it. The way book 2 is ending, I'm just like, no.
You're like, I doubt it. Nope.
I doubt it. Like it's well written, but I hate all of this at the same time. So I don't know. This is my anti-rec. If you read it, you might enjoy it, but I hate it. So don't read it. I don't know what I'm saying here.
No, I understand. I feel like we all have at least one book or one series that went that way. Like, you enjoyed it, but you just hate what the author did to the characters. Like, what did you do to these characters?
What are you doing to them?
Yeah, what are you doing? You're harassing them. It's not fair.
In the book are saying that they're in love with each other. Why are you making it a thing? It's clearly on the wall.
She probably did on purpose, just to upset everybody.
I was very upset.
Well, okay, you guys, if you've read that anti-rec, let us know too, because I'm very curious to see if you are as disturbed as Casey is about what happened to those characters. All right, so we got a couple readers react, and Casey has those. Why don't you share with us what people are thinking about YA?
All right, so Joanne said, I enjoy returning to the days of my youth. I'm pretty picky about YA, specifically the voice. I just started The Firekeeper's Daughter and I'm enjoying it. I finished Prepped by Bethany Mingle in February and thought it was stellar. So, thank you, Joanne, for giving us those recommendations. And yes, be picky about YA. Some of it's really good, some of it's
bad,
not so good. Some of it's an anti-rec, as I just talked about.
Some of it's just bad. I mean, honestly, like, I can think of one title, I don't even remember the author's name, but it was another one of those books that everyone and their mother was loving. And of course, 9 times out of 10, I have the opposite opinion. Do you remember that book Matched? I think it was Allie something. It was the author.
Yeah, like Allie Condon?
Yeah, Connor or something. It starts with a C. Allie something. It
starts with a C, yeah.
Yeah, and everyone and their mother was all about Matched. And I'm like, this is garbage. I'm sorry. No offense.
I haven't read it, but I know exactly. It has a green cover.
Yeah, white cover with the green oval or sphere on it or something.
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, so I mean, some YA is just bad, and that's okay, because just some adult fiction is bad. So you should be picky with what you read, and feel free to stop if it's bad.
Yep.
So thanks for that comment. Appreciate it.
Yes. All right. And then Leslie said, as an adult reader, what I enjoy about YA is the nostalgia of being a teenager. Life is full of possibilities and emotions were more intense, especially in terms of falling in love. Also, most YA books deal with coming-of-age stories. As the character gets to know themselves, I feel that I, as the reader, get to really immerse myself in their character development. Because of this, the characters feel easily relatable, which translates into me being more drawn into the story. As both an adult and mother, I also find myself becoming very protective of the characters that make me more invested in their journey. Due to all of this, the stories become much more vivid than what I typically experience in books geared solely towards adults.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely agree, Leslie. Yeah, no, it's all about the character growth and that passion and that, I'm the only teenager in the world who can save the world right now. I have to do this. It's that coming of age hero story.
Yeah, and being protective of those characters because you have a connection with those characters. Mm-hmm. That is real. Like you heard me a minute ago. I'm like, I'm part of this group. I swear, if I was in this world, I'm in this group. Like, and that does make you more vested. It does make you care about the world, the characters, the development. It makes you care about all of that. You do feel protective of it. Like, it's mine. But that's why different series and books have these huge fandoms. Like people take these things very seriously.
Very seriously.
Yes. Yeah. And don't you dare say you don't like such and such. They will come for you. But we don't go that far, do we, Leslie? We don't go that far.
No, we don't.
But cool. Thanks for the comment. And I agree with you. Yeah. Good deal.
Thank you for the comments, everybody. We love Readers Reacts.
Yes, we love them. So do follow us, you guys. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter so that you can see when the Readers Reacts go up and you can respond. So definitely follow us on at least one platform so you don't miss it.
Yes.
Yeah. Or join the Facebook group, the Shelf Addiction Official. And tell us what you think there as well. Yay. Wow. So I think we're to the end of YA. What do you think?
I think we are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely have more YA recommendations. I can definitely create a list somewhere. I might consider doing that. So definitely, I might create one. Maybe Casey, maybe you can contribute to the list. We can
I definitely could make a much longer list.
Yeah, we may put one on the blog. So I don't know the when or the how, but maybe. I'm feeling inspired after this conversation. I'm like, oh yeah, I like that. And I like that. And I like that too. I forgot about that. Mm-hmm. So anyway, this is like stirred up all kind of like thoughts in my mind about why books that I read. So anyway, thanks for hanging out with us. If you're still listening to my voice right now, I appreciate you for listening all the way to the end. Thanks so much for spending your time, and we will catch you in the next episode. Take care of yourselves.
Hey, everybody.
If you enjoyed today's episode and would like to show your support, there are a few things you can do. Head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a positive 5-star review, or like this episode on your favorite podcast player. It seems so simple, but it really helps me out. You can share this podcast with other book nerd friends or on your favorite social media space. You can also join the Shelf Addiction Patreon family. For as little as $2 a month, you will help us produce even more awesome content for your ears. You can also consider joining the Shelf Addiction Official Facebook group, where we talk all things bookish and more in a safe space. The Shelf Addiction Podcast is a part of the Nerdy Maven Network. You can also reach us via email at info@shelfaddiction.com. Thank you for listening.
(911), what's your emergency?
Una camioneta quiso cruzar las vías y el tren, ay Dios mío.
Señora, ¿me estás diciendo que un tren le pegó a una camioneta?
Sí, yo pensé que alcanzaría a cruzar, ellos iban rápido, creo, y después, ay Dios mío, qué horror.
No puedes saber a qué velocidad viene un tren. Por eso están los señalamientos de advertencia. Obedécelos. Alto, el tren no para.
Mensaje de Nitsa.
Me, but also you. The Pharaoh fast forwards his favorite foreign film, Powder Donut. Okay, what's my line?
The only line I see here on the script is get options based on your budget with the name your price tool from Progressive.
Oh man, that's a tongue twister, huh? I'm sorry, I'm gonna need a few more minutes. Bulbous Walrus, the Bulbous Walrus.
The Name Your Price tool, only from Progressive.
The owl ran afoul of the comatose coxswain.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.